Joining us now, Tyler Smith from thehoosier.com to update Indiana fans on what's going on with transfer portal action on the basketball side of things. Most of the action has been related around guards, Tyler, and obviously, to me, the biggest name in for Indiana to chase to me is the Indiana State transfer. Conwell, and his stat line is kind of off the charts, but he's not alone. There's a few others as well.
Yeah, as soon as that name hit the portal, there was been a lot of interest from fans, and we were wondering if Indiana would get involved, and they are. They have reached out to him, and so yeah, it's 16 a game, 40% from three. He was also a big-time player. He can create his own shot. He plays with confidence. There's just a ton to like about that kid. And, obviously Indiana's trying to lock up multiple guys. So I think right now, Rice and Conwell are two of the guys to really keep an eye on. If Indiana can lock up a couple guys here in the next couple weeks, things can start to change in terms of, the outlook of this team. And they still got a lot of work to do, but there is a lot of irons in the fire, as they say.
Absolutely. And there are a lot of options for Indiana this year. There seems like there are more options for Indiana this year. There are definitely more options that have Indiana ties, a Bloomington tie. It's definitely a different year for the Hoosiers. But Miles Rice, also a name at the very top of that list, a point guard from Washington State. Someone who also had a very, very good year, averaging over 15 points a game in 31 starts this season. He also added almost 5 rebounds, 4 assists per game, and he's also an Indiana native from South Bend. It's just crazy the amount of Indiana players they could actually end up with on this team that are quality players to fill a quality need for this team. For that team.
Yeah, and some of it is, years ago, maybe the staff, didn't recruit certain guys, or certain guys chose other schools, and now there's maybe an opportunity to reconnect. But Rice, man, I've talked to a lot of fans and even some scouts that say he's the real deal, and understand that there's so much about his game that would fit this team. And I feel like, if you look at something like 3-point percentage alone, you're not going to get the whole story. He was shooting better earlier in the year from 3, and then kind of tapered off. But he does so many things well. He can get his own. He can facilitate for other guys. You saw this Indiana team when they were playing well. It's when not only some of the time when Johnson was healthy, but when he was actually playing well, with that group. Rice is a guy that could really pop off, I think, in this one of these next couple of years here. And so he would be huge target. I know he's high on the priority list. And, what I'm interested to see is if Indiana were to land him, would they still be interested in someone like Carlisle or somebody like that can also handle the ball? Would they go for multiple guys that can handle the ball? That's something this team needs. But hopefully they don't just put all their eggs in one basket, as we've seen them do before.
I see a lot of fans commenting that, Indiana has virtually half of what they have coming back are guards. Trey Galloway, Anthony Leal, Gabe Cupps. And people saying, well, this guy's probably going. No, there should be no starters on that team that they currently have. If you do not find your starters in the portal, then you have not upgraded your team nearly as well as you should have, because you have to have the absolute best you can get. And this is not being negative towards a player, but they don't have starter level quality guys on that roster at the moment, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would say, you look at Mbako and Renew, those are solid players.
I mean at the guard position.
Yeah. You look at the guards, and it's like, not only what you were saying, but the coaching staff should not limit themselves and try to, they can't afford to be picky as far as like, oh, we've already got this spot and this spot and we want to fill this spot. No, you go out and get the most talent you can possibly get, and then all that stuff will work itself out. Ideally, this team comes away with 10 to 12 really talented players. And, to take a page from the Rivals book, did you hear Matt Painter after their loss to UConn, how he talked about how guys sacrifice for the team? And there's certain guys in that roster that sacrificed a ton of playing time for the better of the team. So hopefully they're also going out and getting guys that want to win, and even some of their current players. I don't think a guy like Trey Galloway would be too upset if they bring in a ton of talent and have a really good year. And even if that pushes him to a 6-man role, who knows what that looks like. But they've got to go out and get the most talent physically possible and let all of that work itself out.
Exactly. Laurie asking, which one do Indiana fans should they want the most? Who are the guys that would benefit that team the most? I start with the Indiana transfer, Conwell, and then Connor Hicks is not too far behind. Hickman rather is not too far behind, but it's just hard to overlook what Conwell did at Indiana State. His numbers are pretty daggone tasty.
Yeah, for me, I think it's might be even a tie between Rice and Conwell. That would be on my wish list, to bring in two guys that can do a lot for you, and just, man, the entire roster would just look different if they bring in two really good guards that can get their own and facilitate and are team players and have ability to shoot and all that stuff. So that would be probably, in my opinion, the top of the wish list would be a dynamic point guard that can facilitate and run the show like Rice, and then a solid 2-guard who can also handle the ball that can really shoot in Conwell.
Yeah, the difference is that Rice only shot 27% from behind the arc, and Conwell shot 40%. And there are also difference in ages, of course. But is Conwell a point guard or shooting guard?
I thought he played more 2, but he could be, maybe he was a combo guard. I've seen basically a lot of people I've talked to said there's an opportunity for them to get both. And I feel like if they were to get both, that Rice would be the 1, Conwell the 2. But of course, once you're on the fast break, it doesn't really matter so much when you're trying to push the ball. But as far as the half court, I think Rice would be more of the 1. But we'll see what happens there. I think Conwell can do both.
Hickman is another one I think that they could get. They need to land a Bloomington, Indiana native from Bloomington South High School, but his numbers, again, 14.5 points a game, 3 assists a game, 47% from the field, and over 40% from behind the arc, 6 attempts per game. Those numbers are pretty good. And there's he just checks a lot of boxes. And I think that with 3 spots left, do you take 3 guards? I don't care what they currently have on the bench, to be honest with you, because none of those guys can do what these guys can do. And so I kind of ignore that, to be honest with you. You've got 3 spots. I'm bringing in 3 guys that can shoot the hell out of the ball. They don't have to be. You may need 1 good point guard, but then you're kind of in the same boat that you were, not necessarily the same boat you were last year, with the advancement of Trey being able to play it as a backup if he has to. But with Xavier getting hurt last year, Indiana found itself in a bad position that you do not want to find yourself in again. Indiana has Mackenzie Abaco on a wing. You've got the Bryson Tucker, who is more than likely going to play kind of a wingish type player. And now the question also is, with Malik Renew, can he play the 5 successfully? Will he play the 5? If not, is Woodson back to running two bigs?
Yeah, that's the big question. And some of the guys that they're looking at, from I think, one of them's coming this weekend, Payne, and then you got Williams, who is coming next weekend. Those guys, I feel like, and also a guy that I've been talking to this week, Elijah Malone, who was the NAIA Player of the Year, and he's scheduling a visit with Indiana coming up here soon. So we got some exclusive news there that they're scheduling something, and he's a 6'10" guy that can shoot the three and human highlight reel and does a lot of good things. But I feel like in the case of all three of those guys, they would probably be willing to come off the bench because they know they're going to play a lot of minutes as well. If Woodson chooses to go with Reneau at the 5, I think offensively that's the way to go. Reneau at the 5 and Mbako at the 4, fill in with 3 dynamic guards. But obviously with Reneau's occasional foul trouble, maybe more than occasional, and then the rebounding and protecting the rim issues that may come defensively from that, they got to have a couple big bodies that are willing, whether they start or come off the bench. So all three of those names are pretty intriguing.
Yeah, Indiana's leading scorers, top two leading scorers, cannot be their big men. That just doesn't work. The numbers bear it out. You have got to be a much more offensively dynamic team. Indiana is going to have to be a much more offensively dynamic team than they were last year, and that does not come with Malik Reneau and another quote-unquote big man running at it, trading back and forth, being the leader of the game and scoring.
Mm-hmm.
That's why Indiana was not successful. You've got to be beating guys on the perimeter, man. Look, perfect example, Purdue in the national championship game, 37 points for Zach Edey, but they didn't get the support. He didn't get the support because UConn shut their guards down, and they hit 1 3-pointer in the game, although UConn only hit 3, but it was that's a different dynamic.
Yeah, they need to look at it's easy for me to say the 2-time champions, but look at how UConn runs things on the offensive end. They play through their 5 quite a bit, but he's in the high post, and they've got zoom action, Spain action, dribble drive action, 2-man game. They run through him from the high post, and he gets plenty of touches, but it's not just, hey, back your guy down and go to work on every single possession. There's a time and place for that, and I think Reneau is really good at that, and they're going to utilize that. But got to play with 3 or oftentimes 4 wing players that can get their own and create for each other. And depending on who Indiana gets here in these next couple of weeks, we'll see a path to that beginning next year.
Now, Larry Nerd, or Robert Avila, a.k.a. Larry Nerd from Indiana State, is a very unique player because he is he's not a big, but he's a big wing. I guess you can call him that, but a pretty good 3-point shooter. A much better 3-point shooter than, say, Malik Reneau. And as crazy as this sounds, if you had Robert Avila on the roster, would you put him in place of Malik Reneau?
I would be really stunned if Reneau is not a starter next year.
That's not what I'm asking. I asked you.
I would still, at that point, based on the talent of those guys, I would consider.
If Indiana had a center, if they also land a center.
Yeah, I mean, if at that point, then it gets really tough. I don't think it's going to happen because I don't think they're going to get a 5 that's going to be starting caliber and get Larry. But if it was just those 2, I would probably even be tempted to stagger the minutes much more than they did this year with Ware and Reneau. So maybe even they start, but it's only for like that till that first section of the game where the subs come. You leave one of them in, then you stagger, and then you're trying to figure it out. So again, I'll be surprised if any of that happens. But
yeah, while Avila has hit the portal, he did so with a no contact tag, meaning coaches are not allowed to reach out to him. He'll reach out to you. Don't call me, we'll call you kind of a thing. So that'll be interesting. But the big visits are coming next weekend for Indiana. Who all is coming in then?
Yeah, so actually early next week, I think, is Hickman earlier in the week, and then Carlisle, Williams are 19th to the 21st that weekend. So I know those for sure. There's a couple that are waiting on. I don't know if it's been set and just hasn't been reported yet, but there's several other names who are looking. We, certain guys who know the campus and like the back of their hand. We're not sure if they're going to actually make a visit or not. And same thing with Malone. I'm not sure if that's going to be an in-visit or on-campus visit. But Carlisle will be very interesting. I don't know if fans saw this when Miles Rice shared one of his photos. It was when he was playing Carlisle, and the two of them were about to check in a game. So some fans were like, is that speculating that he wants to play with Carlisle, or was it just like kind of a random photo? That was like a week ago or so. And of course, that could also mean they're going to go somewhere else together. But obviously, IU fans look at that and they're thinking, man, a backcourt of two guys that can handle the ball and get to the rim, maybe they're friends, and maybe that's what that meant. But we'll have to see. So, yeah, next weekend is a big one.